there had been two Australian-born players to make it to Major League Baseball before you, but there wasn't exactly a model to follow. How did you decide what decisions you were going to make and when?
Well, as you said, I really didn't have anyone to lean on, so you just play what's before you. I mean, it was an incredible opportunity that no one else had really had. As I said, my brothers had played for Australia before. Two of my brothers, my older brothers, even though I had three brothers that all played for Australia, two of them had signed previously professionally. My brother Gary had signed with the Tigers in the early 80s. My brother Bob signed with the Cincinnati Reds in the late 70s. So they had a sniff of it, but that only lasted a very short term for them, and there really wasn't much information coming out of it. But as a 17-year-old, I knew I wanted to give it a shot. This big thing called Major League Baseball, and I love baseball, so I just had to go. Craig Shipley in the early 80s had broke through. He had played for Australia on junior teams and went to college in the States, and in the 1800s or early 1900s, I think, a guy named Joe Quinn from beautiful Ipswich was the first Australian. He played for the Cleveland Spiders, and I think in a lot of ways I've seen as being the first Australian, but I was the third, but I was the first to sort of come through the original ABL, the original Australian Baseball League. So a lot of people sort of see me that way, but I just had to take a chance on what was before me.
Let's talk about the original Australian Baseball League. It ran for the better part of 2 decades, and at its peak, it was a very commercial product. I mean, you drew great numbers of fans, and you had a bunch of teams all across the country. How did you balance that with your Major League career?
Well, it was perfect. It was perfect. Growing up in Australia, I needed to play more games, so it worked out well. We have the different summers. The Northern Hemisphere summer, that finishes, and that's when they play, and then that would finish, and I would just naturally come home. And the league is the Southern Hemisphere. That's when the ABL started. So for me, it allowed me to play year-round, which was really easy because, again, I had brothers and friends playing, so it was something I wanted to do. Probably later in my career, probably had an adverse effect, but I truly believe if I didn't play in the ABL and I didn't come back and play, I would never have made the major leagues as early as I did, especially. So it worked out really well. It was a great advantage for me, and I think you're seeing it now with this version of the Australian Baseball League. Is there's a lot of young kids who have grown up watching the game, and they're so far ahead of the curve, so to speak.
You mentioned that you had to play baseball year-round to get where you are today. Is that because growing up in Australia, you just didn't have the resources to refine your skills to the degree that some of your competition did when you made it to the States?
Well, yeah, I literally can't explain what I didn't have growing up. I mean, I probably would be lucky if I played 15 to 20 games a year, and that was, turn up an hour before the game, take a couple of swings of a bat, just playing a bit of pepper and throwing it out there, and one practice a week on a cricket field. So, we have 13 and 14-year-old kids doing more in 12 months now than I probably did in a 6-year period. So, having the opportunity to play year-round. Again, we don't play every day in Australia, so just weekends really balance it out. I'd go play in the minor leagues, which was every day, and that was tough, and that would break you down. But you'd come home and you'd be refreshed, being around your family and friends, and you'd want to play, especially when you're young. You love playing the game, and there's really nowhere else you'd want to be. So that worked out really good for me.
8 years in Major League Baseball with the Milwaukee Brewers. Very few players from any background are able to stick with one team for so long. What benefit did it give you to be able to stay with one organization and develop equity with the Brewers?
Yeah, I think that's a two-edged sword. I really valued everything about the Milwaukee Brewers organization. Again, I grew up in an era, especially in Australia, where if you played sport, where you grew up is who you played for. There was no moving around. So, probably would have really broke me early on if I got traded, or if I did move on to another team, because that just wasn't the era I grew up in. We had players there that had been in the big leagues 15 years, Robin Yount and Paul Molitor, Hall of Famers, that, so it was a very natural feeling. It was a very comfortable place. I wanted to be there my whole career. Probably as my career got on and the organization evolved a little bit, and I probably got a bit stale in the relationship, that's probably where that kind of come to an end. But that's probably more reflective of just me than them as an organisation. But my memories of Milwaukee is just nothing but great memories, great people, and a great city.
Since you made it to the major leagues and you made an all-star team in your final major league season, you've been an ambassador for the game and a champion of the game, both financially and just as a figurehead. Why does baseball mean so much to you?
Well, I think you hear athletes say that the sport just kind of chooses you. From the time I remember, I've just always loved baseball. I've always loved sport, so I love sport. I love every sport. I follow most, if not every sport. I'm intrigued by the athletes and the coaches, and I just love that whole competition piece. And so baseball's just kind of my thing. Probably after I took a break from playing, as much as I tried to get away from it, I couldn't get away from it. If you asked me 10 or 15 years ago what I'd be doing now, I didn't think I'd be involved in baseball. It just kind of that's who I am. That's the lane I've been given. I'm from a big baseball family, and there is no escaping baseball, and especially within Australia, with what I've done over here and what I continue to do, it is who I am. It's just I'm a baseball guy. I'm an Australian guy, and I think also when you get to that point, and I knew early on that I could really help a lot of people along the way. And as I get older, there's different ways I can help the sport and bring attention to it. So, in life, whenever you get an opportunity to really benefit others or benefit a large group, it's a pretty empowering feeling. So, I'm honoured to be in this position now. And as I said, I never thought I'd be doing it for this long.
You phrased it as having a big baseball family. You do have now a vested interest in growing the game in the next generation, because you've got sons, nephews, any number of other relatives who are involved in the game here in Australia. How has it benefited you to be able to have that family connection as you try and grow the game?
Well, I think during the struggles of sport, having family around, or having distant family around, whether it's cousins or brothers or nephews or whatever it may be, or sisters-in-laws, whatever it is, I think it just brings you back to that relationship side of the sport, where it's just about people. It's just about, because the sport will break you down. You're going to have failures in the sport, and the sport will going to make you want to quit just in itself. But I think, having that reminder that it's about people, it's about relationships, and it's just about helping people, I think that kind of spurs on balances things out.
I know you're a big believer in the future of baseball in Australia, but why are you a big believer? I know that participation in the youth is up and the ABL is doing well. What gives you hope for the future?
Well, Australia as a whole, we produce good athletes. And I think when you look across every sport, we produce good athletes. I think, we're a country that the government supports its sport. They take physical exercise seriously, and they love investing in the sport. And baseball is such a world sport. It just doesn't make sense with who Australians are to not support baseball eventually. I think the growth in Asia is really key to it. And I think as we as a country learn the opportunities, they're only going to grow, they're not going to shrink. So for that reason, I think we're always going to have continued growth, and like everything, there'll be some good decisions that spur it on, and then every now and then we might make a wrong decision and there'll be a few steps backwards. But long term, I think there's nothing but good opportunities to grow the game.